Shalom, and welcome to yet another funky extra-biblical commentation. Today we're diving into the Book of Jasher, chapter 55 in the MSG version, and I have the original translation here. Verse 1, After a while Jacob said, I'm going to Egypt to see my son, and then I'm going right back to Canaan. It's where God promised to Abraham, and it's where I belong. Then God's message came to him, verse 2, loud and clear. Go on down to Egypt, take everyone with you, and settle there. Don't worry about it. I'm the one who's going to make you a great nation. Jacob thought to himself, I have to see my son. I need to know if he still puts God first in his heart with all those Egyptians around. Then God assured Jacob, don't worry about Joseph. He's still as devoted to me as ever. You'll see. That made Jacob burst with pride and joy for his son. Right then and there, Jacob ordered his sons and household to pack up and go to Egypt, just as God had said. He and his whole family left Canaan from Beersheba with such joy and excitement in their hearts as they set off for Egypt. When they were close to Egypt, Jacob sent Judah ahead to Joseph to scout out a good spot for them all. Judah did exactly as his father asked, and he hurried to Joseph. They assigned a place for Jacob's family in the land of Goshen. Then Judah turned back and all the way back to meet his father. Joseph got his chariot ready, assembled all his best men, his servants and top officials in Egypt, as they could go out and meet his father Jacob. Joseph had a decree made public all throughout Egypt. Anyone who doesn't go meet Jacob will be executed. The very next day, Joseph led the whole Egyptian nation out to meet Jacob, a huge and impressive crowd. Everyone was dressed in fine linen and purple, carrying instruments of silver and gold and all kinds of war gear. They marched out to meet Jacob with every kind of instrument imaginable, drums, tambourines, showering the road with perfume and spices like myrrh and aloes. The earth literally shook from their shouting. Every woman in Egypt was on the rooftops and walls to see Jacob. On his way to meet his father, Joseph wore Pharaoh's royal crown. Pharaoh had sent it to him so he would look his best when seeing his dad. When Joseph got about 75 feet from his father, he stepped out of his chariot and walked toward him. All the Egyptian officials and nobles saw this, so they also got out of their chariots and walked to meet Jacob. As Jacob approached Joseph's encampment, he saw overwhelmed with gratitude and astonishment at how grand and impressive it looked. Jacob asked Judah, Who is that man decked out in royal robes, that fancy red garment and a crown? It sounds like the same thing they put on Jesus, right? Yeshua when they persecute him. A mockery version of that. Who just got out of his chariot and is walking towards us. Not is, Judah replied. That's your son Joseph, Dad, the king. Jacob was amazed, overflowing with joy to see his son in such glory. Joseph came right up to his father and bowed down before him. The entire camp of men followed suit, bowing before Jacob, hitting their faces to the ground. Jacob immediately ran to Joseph, threw his arms around his neck and kissed him. Both were sobbing tears of joy. Joseph also held his father close, and they kissed and cried. Everyone in Egypt cried with them. Jacob told Joseph, Now I could die happy. I've seen you with my own eyes, still alive, and with all this honor. Jacob's sons, their wives, their kids, the servants, Jacob's entire family, all wept openly with Joseph, hugging and kissing him with tears pouring down their faces. Joseph and his people then headed back to Egypt, with Jacob, his sons, and the rest of Jacob's family. Joseph gave them the best part of Egypt to live in, the land of Goshen. Joseph said to his father and brothers, I am going to tell Pharaoh that my family has arrived and are all here in the land of Goshen. And that's exactly what Joseph did. He brought his brothers Reuben, Issachar, Zebulun, Benjamin before Pharaoh. Joseph explained to Pharaoh, My family has come to me from Canaan with all their flocks and Joseph took part of what he had left and gave it to his brothers, to his father's family, and to all the women in his father's house. The rest, about 20 talents of gold and silver, he brought to Pharaoh's palace. Joseph gave the rest in gold and silver to Pharaoh, who placed it in a treasury. The famine finally ended, and everyone planted and reaped their crops as usual. They lacked for nothing. Joseph lived securely in Egypt, giving counsel to the entire land. His father and all his brothers lived in Goshen, claiming it as their own. Verse 35. Joseph was very old, and his two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, lived in Jacob's house along with the rest of his grandchildren. They were always there to learn about God's ways and laws. Jacob and his sons lived in the land of Egypt, in the land of Goshen. They made it their home. They were fruitful, and their family continued to grow. Let us move into commentations. So Lord Gideon's biblical, extra-biblical commentary reference Book of Jasher, chapter 55 in the Apocrypha. The narrative of the Book of Jasher, chapter 55, details Jacob's move to Egypt to reunite with his son Joseph, who had risen to a position of great power in the Egyptian government. The story portrays the family's journey, their reunion, and their eventual settlement in the land of Goshen. The chapter shows a glimpse of God's hand in the lives of the people and how reconciliation and faith can play pivotal roles in the lives of the faithful. This passage, while not canonical, provides insight into the narrative arc of the story and the implications of Jacob's move to Egypt. We also refer to the related texts, like those found in the book of Genesis, for supporting biblical context. Verse 1, commentation. Jacob expresses his desire to see Joseph in Egypt, but with the intention of returning to Canaan. This reveals his deep attachment to the land promised to his forefather, which is echoed in Genesis 28:15, when God promised Abraham and his descendants, "I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land." Back to the land. Jacob's strong connection to the land of his birth demonstrates his faith in God's promise, while also revealing a longing for his homeland. Verse 2, here God commands to Jacob to relocate to Egypt. Comes with assurance. God directly contradicts Jacob's intention of returning to Canaan. This direct communication echoed the pattern of divine guidance found throughout the patriarchs' lives. Additionally, the promise to make him a great nation in Egypt seems contrary to Jacob's original desire to return to Canaan. This mirrors the message of Genesis 46:3, where God tells Jacob, "I am God, the God of your fathers. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for I'll make you into a great nation there." This shows that God is not bound by our assumptions or plans. Verse 3, Jacob's concern for his son's spiritual well-being is evident. He wonders if Joseph's faith has remained intact. Joseph's integrity, confirming that Joseph remains faithful. Jacob is astonished by grandeur surrounding Joseph, which speaks volumes at Joseph's success in Egypt. The narrative then turns to the tearful reunion between father and son, with both falling into each other's arms, reflecting the deep emotional ties that have remained over the years.